My husband left me all by myself to raise our children so he could run off and live with his mistress. And he did all this because she has more money than him. But guys, this story gets so much deeper because I figure out from his, dad, a very disturbing secret, that he just shared with me. Hey guys, I'm overwhelmed by the amazing response I got last week's book review. Today, instead of reviewing a story, I want to tell you mine. I've never really shared much about my life or about who I am. I just use this website to inspire you all to read. It's just something I'm really passionate about, and I'm not really a career-driven woman. I work at a hotel as a receptionist, and I'm more focused on my family. Financial independence really matters to me, based on the horrible past I'm going to share with you all today. My first husband, Theo, he left me for another woman, leaving me alone with 2 very young children, and I don't know what I would have done if it weren't for my then father-in-law, John. And my current husband, Isaac. 6 years ago, I discovered Theo's affair with a wealthy woman, Josie. Theo and his mother, Angela, are the greediest people I've ever met. They left me for Josie's money and lavish lifestyle. I was employed and left to fend for myself with my children, and I was completely helpless and wanted to hurt myself at the time. John took me in after Angela left him too, and he took care of me and the kids. I finally got up on my feet and met Isaac. It's been 2 years since that we've been happily married, but trouble started in our paradise when Josie decided to kick Theo out along with Angela. After years of not giving a damn, they returned, asking to be a part of the children's lives. I finally gave in, and after all the begging and pleading. But what made me so mad is that Angela decided to use the opportunity to manipulate my innocent boys. Now, I want to make sure they never see my children's faces ever again. Let me paint you the whole picture for you to understand. I wasn't stupid enough to get married to a cheater who has no ambitions in life. Theo and I were initially very happy. He worked extremely hard, and Angela has always been a gold-digging jerk. He would always criticize Theo for not earning enough money, and Theo would often switch jobs in search of a higher-paying job. His efforts were in vain. He eventually got into the wrong company, which would encourage him to run for ways to make money more quickly. His methods of earning quick money, such as gambling and making bets, rendered him penniless. Theo had changed entirely, and Angela was encouraging it. She was fanning the flames even more, and I was financially dependent on him. My kids Cody and Toby were 3 and 5 years old at the time. Theo did not want me to work at all, and we often got into arguments about his way of spending money and his not allowing me to earn money, and his mother was a regular guest at our house. She would annoy the snot out of me and call me a useless woman for not taking good care of my family. She always wanted to spoil my kids and would doubt my methods of parenting. She hated me because she wanted Theo to marry somebody rich. Theo is quite the looker, and she would call me ugly compared to him. She would often tell me that I did not deserve such a good-looking guy. I had put on too much weight after giving birth to my baby boys. Her main comments would always give me body image issues. I wasn't really aware of our education about mental health issues, but I'm pretty sure her comments caused me to have an eating disorder or something. I look back at it now and frown. I would skip meals throughout the day instead of showing concern. Theo and his mother would laud me for skipping meals and not eating. This showed in our intimate lives too. Theo has stopped making me feel beautiful. It was very upsetting, and for the longest time, I thought it was all my fault. The financial strain would give me an immense stress too. Bills, they were piling up, and Theo had no money to pay them. We needed electricity and water, so I would pay the bills with what I had to cut the food down. I ensured my family had something to eat, but I would mostly sleep on an empty stomach. Theo and Angela would complain about how bad my food was, and I would often fight with Theo and I revealed that I would go hungry just so they could eat. Instead of feeling guilt or shame, he told me it was my duty and it was no big deal. He told me I don't need food because I'm at home the whole day and I do nothing anyways. I was shocked at how much Theo had changed since I got married to him. I felt unloved by him. My physical and mental health were both going downhill because of Theo and Angela's constant torture. I confided in John and told him everything. He apologized for Angela and Theo's ill treatment and promised to ensure Angela would not show up at my doorstep. He also gave me money so that I could buy us food. One day, Theo came home drunk and started shouting at me and hurling abuse at me for being so ugly and useless. He revealed to me that he was with another woman and that he was leaving me for her. He told me that he gave me too many chances to be a better wife, but I never tried to be one for him. He left me and my children that very night, and a couple of days later, I found out that Angela and Theo had moved in with a woman named Josie. They lived at Josie's father's house, and Josie's father, 65-year-old male, is a wealthy man. And Josie is nothing more than a spoiled, rotten brat. She was infatuated with Theo and wanted him to move in with her. Angela moved in with them as well for the money. Josie didn't care. She had a lot of space in her mansion and was ready to do anything to keep Theo. Theo, too, was ready to do anything for her since she had a huge amount of money. Theo had become the equivalent of a butler at their house, and he would run errands for Josie's father and would pick up Josie's shopping bags and take her wherever she wanted. Josie did not want Theo to be away from her or go to work. Theo happily committed to living at their house and being available at Josie's beck and call. I, on the other hand, was living alone. Trying to manage life with my 2 children, I was so frustrated, and then more trouble came my way. Theo had sold the house to pay off the money that he borrowed from people for gambling, and my kids and I had nowhere to go. John took me in and cared for me and my babies during this tough times, and I told him I'd go to my parents' house, but he stopped me and told me to stay with him. It was really hard, but I got back up on my own 2 feet, and I really started to take care of myself and my children. Since Angela had abandoned John too, he had no one else but me for support. My kids really missed their father, but John really tried to fill the void despite his age. I sent Theo divorce papers, and he paid me with a lump sum with the help of Josie. Angela and Josie laughed at me when they met me during the divorce procedure, called me too ugly for Theo. I used the money and really put a lot of effort into maintaining myself. I had the most hectic schedule, but still looked at time to take out for the workout and the visit to salon. It really helped my self-esteem, I love the gym. I'm really proud of who I've become, and I've really grown since then. I eventually met Isaac. We fell in love, and he accepted me and my children for who we truly are. Yes, we're a crazy family, but we love and support each other. I could not have found a better father for my kids than Isaac. Trouble landed in our paradise when Josie decided to kick Theo out now that he was fat and ugly. Karma really hits hard, She kicked Angela out along with him, and now they had nowhere to go. They went back to John, but John would not let them in at all, no matter how much they begged. Theo had to get a job. 6 years of doing nothing had done no good for him, and it was difficult for him to land a job. He ended up with a low-paying job. He could barely manage household expenses, and Angela was being a pain in him too. Now, he knows how I really must have felt back then. Josie had found a new guy, much hotter. Theo was jealous and decided that he needed somebody too. He set out to look for me and my kids, and he landed on my doorstep. He took one good look at me from head to toe and exclaimed that I had changed. He said that I looked absolutely beautiful. I was shocked to see him, and I was almost in tears, to be honest. I screamed in his face and told him to go away. He stood outside my door and begged me to let him in and let him meet the boys, and he kept on apologizing and begged me for one more chance. He desperately wanted to reconcile, and I told him I was married and I would not open that door. He went away that day, but would constantly blow up my phone and beg me to let him see his children. So, I told him that they weren't his children anymore, and that if he cared about them even the slightest bit, he would leave us alone. It was unfair of him to leave his kids for so many years without wanting to even see their faces and just suddenly show up. He tried to pose as their father at school and meet them, and I was going to call the police, but it was far too late. Toby and Cody had a lot of questions in their head. Cody even vaguely remembered his father, and I told them that we weren't together anymore. Isaac explained that Theo hurt my feelings, and that's why I and their fathers aren't together. The whole thing, honestly, was really hard on the kids to even comprehend and understand. Their perspective on our family changed overnight. They had many questions on their mind. I was baffled, too. The whole thing was difficult to manage. I hated Theo for what he had done. The very next day, he came back to my house and fought with Isaac, accusing him of stealing his wife and kids. Theo got down on his knees and begged him to reconcile, and I refused. I told him to leave. I even threatened to call the police. Theo, at this point, was in absolute tears, and he asked me to at least let him meet his children. He got emotional and calmly told me how lonely that he's been. He cried that his mother was not supportive either, and Angela and Theo lived in Angela's old house and things were really hard for him. He said he could not cope. The whole conversation moved me, and I felt sorry for him. Isaac comforted him too. I decided to let Theo meet my kids just for the well-being, and I didn't want to be the bad person in their eyes. I took pity on Theo. I thought I'd be the big person and just help Theo cope, and I believed that yes, Theo had changed, and I lived to regret the decision I made at the time. Initially, I would just let Theo meet him at my house once a week. The kids enjoyed being around Theo as well, and I explained to the children that Isaac is their dad too, just like Theo, and that nothing should change in our happy family. Well, they understood and even respected what I had to say. Theo requested that I let him take the kids out, but I was hesitant at first, but I started trusting him. So I let him take them out on Sundays, and Theo took them to his house where my kids met Angela. They came back home, and I referred to Angela as Grandma. I was so mad. I hated that woman to the core. I instantly regretted my decision, and I could not just explain to my kids that Angela was evil. My kids wanted to meet Angela again the next Sunday, and I let Theo take them, but I decided to talk to Theo and let him know I was not okay with my kids seeing Angela. But it was too late. The damage has been done. Angela had told my kids that Isaac and I had an affair, and Isaac is the reason Theo and I aren't together. She told my children that Isaac is evil, and that he was the reason their family broke up. She also told them that I took all their money, and that's why they're so poor. She told the kids to leave me and move in with their father and poor old Grandma instead. Cody started throwing tantrums. He refused to call Isaac his father anymore, and I told them it was all a nasty lie. I even got John to visit and tell them the truth from his own mouth, and Toby believed us, but Cody, he thought that we were all lying. The whole situation was sensitive and difficult, and I talked to Cody, but all my efforts were in absolute vain. Angela had brainwashed him so badly that he was not ready to believe what we were saying. I forbade Theo and Angela from meeting the kids, and Theo and Angela secretly visited them at the park, and they encouraged the kids to come and live with them and told them that I was evil and would not let Theo and Angela meet the kids. Cody ran away from home to go live with them, but he got lost in trying to find Theo and Angela's house, and he never reached their house. So I had to call the police, and they looked everywhere. They found him crying on a park bench in the opposite direction from where Theo lived. The police had to console him. My little boy was in danger just because Angela manipulated him. I was furious, and I sent them a legal letter. They had already given up the boy's custody, and I sent the boys to a counselor, who explained the whole thing to them in a very calm, professional manner. It helped a lot since Cody was not ready to listen to me at all. Cody eventually calmed down and warmed up to me and Isaac again, but it was not the same as before. Despite everything that went down, Theo and Angela still made efforts to contact the kids. They would come over to my house whenever they liked, and begging to see the children, I got sick and tired of their annoying behavior, so I finally filed a complaint against them. I requested that my children need protection from them as they're manipulative, and my child was put into danger. Theo did not have a good track record anyways. He was known for cheating, gambling. The court put a restraining order against them, and they were supposed to maintain a distance from my children, and I didn't want to have to do such a thing. But I did not have a choice. Theo threatened me that I had done was not good and that he'd be back to take my kids very soon. I assured myself that he would not be able to do anything. But sometimes I worry about my kids. Cody's starting to become extremely rebellious. The situation is much better than before, but it's still not okay. Cody trusts me, but now there's a distance between him and Isaac, and I've noticed that he also tries to pity Toby against Isaac. Toby recently shouted at Isaac, and it's really hard to deal with the boys despite the counseling. If anyone has any ideas on what I can do, please drop a comment. This is a request from a frustrated and desperate mother. Please help, I'm putting a hold on the book review for a couple of weeks. The holidays have started, and I've booked tickets to somewhere nice. I hope this solves the issue in our family. I really want us to go back to the way we were. Hey everyone, I know it's been a long time since I've posted, and things have been pretty hectic for me. Thank you for the comments supporting me. A big hug to all the women who shared their body image issues. It's hard, and people do make you feel ugly. I've been trying to implement some of your advice with my children. Well, we try to do fun activities together as a family, and I try to make them feel like we're perfect. We had a lovely vacation for all those who've asked. I have to share with you all an update on what happened with Theo and Angela. Theo's luck turned out well, and he won a huge amount of money on a bet that he placed. He used the money to hire a good lawyer for himself. As soon as we were back from the trip, we found the legal notice that Theo sent us. We had to go to trial for our children. Theo claimed that our kids were unhappy with me and Isaac, and the lawyer, Aaron, blamed us for not taking enough care of Cody. That's why he ran away. He told the judges that it's very clear that Cody does not want to live with us. We argued that Cody is not old enough to know what's best and that he was manipulated and lied by Angela. It was a long battle, but the decision was on their side, and they decided that there was actually no need for the restraining order and that Theo was not a threat to my children. They granted him visitation rights and he could take my kids away for the weekend. The decision shattered me completely. I knew that Angela would take the complete advantage of this and use it to manipulate my kids even further. We could not do much about it. We had to give in. Cody was pretty excited to be able to meet his dad again, and Isaac has been pretty frustrated too. We can't focus on our work at all. Every passing weekend, we felt that the boys have been slipping away from our hands. Angela's turning them into brats. She feeds them junk food and tells them that she feeds it to them because she loves them more. My kids come home and refuse to eat the food that I make. They're starting to have behavior issues, and I've constantly been called in by their teachers. They complain that my kids have been using foul language, and I don't have any evidence that it's them. They've recently started watching bad content online. They've never done this before, but they simply will not listen to me. No matter how much I try, they keep threatening to leave me and go and stay with their father forever. I don't want to shout at them and let them slip away from me even further. I don't know what to do anymore. They simply refuse to visit the counseling center either. I don't get the opportunity to spend time with my kids at all. Isaac and I come home late at night. Theo takes my kids away for the weekend, which was the only time that I would ever spend quality with them. I've had a hard work and, a word with my boss about the changing of my shift, giving me days off during the week and allowing me to work on the weekends, etc. The shift has already been filled by another person, and, so it's going to be difficult. I'm still trying my best, and I feel I need to spend more time with my children. Sometimes I even think of leaving my job for my kids. Nothing can be more important than them, right? I just don't know what to do. Angela and Theo have made my life hell. They're the ones destroying my family, and they're telling my kids that Isaac destroyed theirs. I just hope my kids understand their true colors soon, and I'll try to figure out how to manage this situation. Hopefully, I can talk to a lawyer to convince the judge that giving my kids to Theo is a bad idea. The teachers are on my side and are willing to comment on the kids' behavior changes. I'm hoping it's enough to convince them to change their decision. I'll be updating you pretty soon on this. Thank you guys for hearing me out. Update number 2. So, hey everyone. I'm here with a much-needed update, and all of you have been asking, as well as suggesting approaches that I can take with Cody. Thank you for your concern on that. You don't understand how much I appreciate it. The way Cody and Toby were acting after regularly meeting Angela and Theo, it was concerning. I hate to say that they're a bad influence on my kids. I don't expect anything else from Angela anyways. She's a bad influence on Theo too, and I don't want my kids to turn into Theo. So I was desperate to kick them out of my life. But I did not know how. I could easily prove how bad an influence they were on my kids in court, but that would make them more rebellious. I just didn't want them to distance themselves more from Isaac and me. As every weekend passed, I got more desperate. The kids had started using Angela's foul language, and they also started showing a peculiar interest in betting and card games. I tried to control my reactions, but I burst out in anger and told them that they just can't say the things they do. They reverted and told me they wished that they could stay at Father's house forever, and they did not like coming back home at all. There were no rules there. They stay up late at night, but will come back home tired and groggy. The junk food, it wasn't healthy in the long run either, and Theo is such a stupid parent. He's ruining the kids' lives for his own benefit, and I don't understand why he wants to see the kids in the first place. He's so selfish and did not want anything to do with them 6 years ago. Isaac and I sat down with John while the kids were away to hatch a plan to get rid of them for good. John wanted to murder Angela. But we all laughed at that, but knew it was not the solution. John thought of a great idea. We decided to trap them and use their words against them, and when they came back home, I sent them upstairs to take a bath. We told Angela and Theo we wanted to have a word. John offered them $20,000 to get the heck out of our lives. Angela agreed instantly, but Theo, he was a bit unsure. Angela exclaimed that she had enough and does not want to take care of the stinky kids anyways. She started talking all sorts of bullcrap about my kids. Theo and Angela admitted that they were doing this so that they could cave their way back into our lives so that John and I could take them back. I told them that they were stupid for believing that that would ever happen. I knew they had a motive behind it, and Theo just wanted someone to cook and clean for him, if not pay for him. He could not manage his expenses or his household, and he could not even look after his own kids. Angela told Theo to forget about the kids and take the money. Theo eventually agreed because he needed the money. We made a fake deal with them. That's right. We made a fake deal, and they agreed to leave my kids' lives for a bit of money. I knew my kids would be eavesdropping. They had recently developed the habit. I still made Isaac stand in the hallway to ensure that they heard everything. Our plan worked. They heard all the mean things Angela said about them, and Theo agreed to take the money and leave too. We weren't going to give them anything, but I literally would have paid them to keep them away if I had thought of it earlier. Cody and Toby had started resenting them. They weren't happy to go to theirs the next weekend, and they threw tantrums and refused to go. Angela did not want them around anyways, but Theo begged them to go with him. They straight up refused and called him a liar. They badmouthed Angela with the same language that she used, and Angela had the audacity to tell me to teach my kids some manners. Theo was a bit frustrated at that, and they eventually left without the kids, and they could not force my kids to go with them. We went to court and managed to prove that they were a horrible influence. The teachers and our friends helped too by revealing the changes in their behavior. I made sure they would not come back into our lives and made sure the restraining order against them was put back on. Angela made a big fuss in court that we offered them money but did not pay. She screamed and shouted, and it cast a really bad light on her. It did more harm to her reputation than good, and Theo just wanted her to shut up. He was embarrassed about the whole situation, and he condemned me for taking his kids away from him. I hope now that they're gone for good, he doesn't, pull off anything else. I'm constantly worried about my kids. Our plan did take my kids away from them, but they're still distanced from us, especially Isaac. The kids don't call Isaac Dad anymore, and they didn't talk much or have fun with Isaac like before. Things are slowly getting better, but it's very, very slow, and the whole process is simply killing me. I hope things get better quickly, and I just really can't watch my family break apart like this. My kids are extremely hurt because of Angela and Theo's statements. They're upset that their father gave them up for a small amount of money. I tried to tell them more about their father and explain the reasons behind his behavior. Well, my boys were confused and had a lot of questions about money. For now, I explained to them the importance of money, but that family and their well-being are always going to be far greater of an importance. I think that things are getting back to normal at home. Well, I hope. The good news is that Isaac is finally focused on his work, and the poor thing was so stressed out. I can finally have weekends with my boys. We have not had a family fun for weeks. Update number 3. Hey everyone. This post is yet another update about Theo and Angela. It's a little unfortunate for them, but I'm not gonna lie, I felt revealed. Well, we did not hear much from Theo and Angela after the hearing, and after a few weeks, Theo started calling my phone every single night and telling me how much he wanted me back in his life. He had gone against his restraining order, and I was allowed to file a complaint against him. I didn't want any more drama, so I blocked his number. He kept calling from different numbers, and we were getting annoyed, but things were just going back on track. We decided to wait for a little less work before calling the authorities and kept our phones silent at night. After a few weeks of continuously calling us, he suddenly stopped. I began to ponder what happened, but could not care enough to investigate, and John came in with the news that he had borrowed a lot of money for gambling and all his activities, and he got beaten up by people that landed him in the hospital. It turns out that the people he was with were part of a big group of people who did illegal activities. Kind of like the mafia, I don't know how to describe it. He was taken into police custody and further investigation, and John was contacted for further information upon Theo. Theo would have to go to jail because his gambling and bettings were totally illegal. He would bet on illegal street fights, and the police wanted to put an end to it. Since Theo was in jail, Angela had nowhere to go. She went back to John and begged him to take her back into his life, but John did not budge. He told her to leave the premises or he's going to call the cops on her. He told her that she was dead to him and that he doesn't need a wife anymore. Poor Angela could not work at such an old age, and she found an old age home for herself and sold her house just to spend the rest of her days there. It wasn't the luxurious life that she wanted, but she had no other choice, and she could not fend for herself. Karma struck them both very hard. They left the people who loved and cared for them for money, and now look where they are. It's a lesson to be learned for everyone, and I hope readers will take them as an example to understand why greed only lands you in bad places. Now they have to live the rest of their life in immense pain. As for Cody and Toby, they've moved on. I did send them for counseling to make them feel better, and I did not want all this to have a permanent impact on their lives. I did not tell them their father was in jail, though. I prefer not to bring that up, out of fear. I'll tell them when they're older. For now, let's just let them live their innocent, happy life. Guys, this is going to be my last update about my ex. I think it's getting old, and it's time my family moves on since they're now gone for good. Thanks to all of you for your support and reading. It really means a lot. Alright guys, let's jump into 2 comments. These comments do not agree with each other, so let me know whose side you're on with this one. Comment number 1 says this. Oh wow. First off, a big hug. You've been through a whirlwind, and while I'm all for fathers being a part of their children's life, it's clear Theo and Angela are toxic influences. I'm glad the truth came to light and that you're prioritizing your children's well-being. Take care and hope things only get better from there. So that comment was in support of OP. Let's take a look at comment number 2 now, which is completely opposite. And keep in mind, both of these comments got a lot of attention in the updates. Comment 2. I'm sorry, but I can't help but think you're painting Angela and Theo in a much worse light than they deserve. Yes, they have their flaws, but they're human. Maybe it's time for all of you to sit down, have an honest, calm conversation for the sake of the children. Also, isn't it a bit manipulative to keep the fact that their father is in jail away from the kids? They deserve to know. So guys, knowing those 2 commenters' perspective, let me know which one you side with the most. Drop it downstairs in the comment section. My husband's actually refusing to add my sons to his will, so you know what? I decide to do a little bit of petty revenge, and I do something to his daughter nobody saw coming. I married my husband Joe about 5 years ago. Well, I wouldn't call it marriage. I would say it's a contractual agreement within 2 people to live together or cohabit. Joe and I met in the most unprecedented way ever. Actually, I wish it was a true love story, and what I share with Joe became a really personal one for me along the way. But it was never the same for Joe. Joe has the most perfect look for a 45-year-old man. He could pass for a really young man. I mean, I'm 42, so there wasn't a major age difference between us, and I willingly walked into the contractual marriage because I saw something in him. Let's start with his beauty. Joe, he was a beautiful man. Although it wasn't a real marriage, I was willing to give him babies at no cost. Funny, right? I love this man. We did not lie to each other because the terms and conditions of our marriage was stated clearly from the get-go. Do not show emotions. It's not real. It's all camouflage. My name's Alina, and I made the wrongest decision to be in a contractual marriage at my big of age. Call me dumb. I wouldn't fight you over it. It might just be the word to describe me. So, I co-owned a mart with a friend. Situation in the heart of Missouri. This mart was always serving the good people of Missouri and the students of the state university well. They really are my biggest consumer and target audience. I wasn't rich, but I was definitely comfortable. I have 2 amazing sons from a previous marriage. I walked out of that marriage alive after we got divorced over domestic violence charges against him. I gained custody of my children because their father was a monster. He wasn't only assaulting me, but the psychopath would always look for a way to abuse his own children, too. I needed no one to advise me before I knew walking out of the marriage was the best choice. He lost virtually everything he owned to me, although it wasn't all about the money or the gain for me. It was about me and my children making it out alive and calling the death cult tagged marriage quit. He lost his house to me and my children, and a restraining order was placed. My life hasn't really received much help in a long time. I was right in my mart the day I met Joe. He walked into the store like every other normal customer. After getting everything he came to buy, it was time for him to pay, and I realized he was having a difficult time paying. His cards were swiped countless times, and he was getting frustrated. I moved closer to him and asked what's wrong. His eyes were so beautiful. I got lost in them for a moment, and I'm not kidding. He explained his cards were misbehaving, and it seemed to be his unlucky day. I smiled at the statement he made. It kind of made me laugh. I asked him if he stays around, but he told me he doesn't. He only came to drop his daughter off in school, and he needed to help get her some groceries. The moment he said that, I just felt the need to pull him out of this awkward situation. I told him just to go with the groceries and make sure to pay us next time. He was so happy and made a joke about dropping his shoes or his identity card as collateral. I told him worry less, just make sure he stops by to pay us next time. Well, guys, that singular act I exhibited was foreign to me. I've never been lenient with customers. I was running a business and it was strictly business, but something drew me to Joe. He thanked me and he promised to stop by soon, with an active card, of course. The day went by really fast and we closed for the day. It was getting really cold and late in the night, and we had to call it a day. The following day, we were going about our daily lives as we should, not until I saw a familiar figure walk into the mart. I recognized him at a first glance. It was this beautiful man from yesterday. I was really a simp for a beautiful man. Oh, my ex-husband was beautiful too, I just don't learn right. He was to counter to pay off his lingering debt. I wasn't going to say a hello, so he wouldn't know I had a thing for him, but I heard him ask about me. He came to where I was seated, and we exchanged greetings. He thanked me for saving him yesterday, and I told him I don't play such cards. He just seemed really genuine. We chatted for a while before we both remembered we should go back to our daily routine. We exchanged contacts and he gave his word to always patronize any time he comes around. It was 3 months after the scene at the mart, and Joe finally reached out. Actually, I forgot there was any man. I had things to face. I had kids and a business to monitor. The infatuation I had towards Joe only lasted the time I was seeing him. I totally forgot about him, honestly. He had to reintroduce himself the day he placed the phone call. But I was happy he reached out and he asked if we could meet. We're both adults, why not? He said he would drive down to the state I was in and we fixed a date, just to meet. And it felt like I was in my youth again. It's been years since the last I did this whole fixing a date to meet a man thing. I was willing to go on any date. I was single after all, and I never vowed to be single forever. I found myself surfing the World Wide Web for a date dress idea. I've done a lot of silly things, and as far as I could remember, I had so much fun during the days of my youth. I've always been doing silly things and making bad decisions. Hey, what's up everybody? Mr. Reddito here. I hope you're having a great day. There's 4 updates for this story. The first update we're going to jump into now. Here it is. Well, the day we agreed to meet finally came, and to my taste, I dressed well. My dress did not scream desperate. It was simple, classy. Joe looked beautiful, just like the last time I saw him. We hugged and placed orders, chit-chatted, and the date went really well. We promised to do it again. During the course of the date, Joe asked if I was married. I told him I got a divorce and I also have 2 sons from the marriage. I asked about his marriage life too, and he told me, although he hasn't gotten a divorce yet, his wife and him are no longer together. I didn't understand what he meant. He said his wife moved out of the house all of a sudden. She didn't divorce him and he hasn't seen her? He would have divorced her himself, no? Although it would be expensive. Quote, divorce favors the woman, you know. I told him yes, that's because we have substantial reasons to back it up. And he asked if I was open to marrying somebody else. I told him the next time I would be getting married must be worth it. Because I can't keep walking out of marriages. I need a safe place. He told me he understood what I meant. Joe said he doesn't want to sound too forward or reasonable, but I should hear him out. I told him I was listening to him. He asked if I would like to get married to him. Huh? He was asking for my hand in marriage? I wanted to jump on him and tell him yeah, but I held that cheeky spirit in my back. I told him he was a cool man and I would love to marry him. However, he will need to give me time to think about it. Joe was a confident man himself. He said there was nothing to think about, but I should do my thing and let him know if I was willing to go on that journey with him. He didn't even end it there, as he further said there was a condition. He said we weren't going to get married legally. I asked him how's that possible. Then he dropped the bomb. He said he needed my help. He said he was their heir to his father's business, and his father had been having a second thought about handing the business over to him. He said his father knows he was more than capable to pilot the business, but he was using a particular card against him. I asked him what the card was, and he said his father said he was going to hand over his business to someone that could properly manage his home, to someone his wife left him. His father said such person would not know how to manage a huge business. A huge part of me agreed with his father. Manage and control your home well, and we can trust you with any other thing. I then asked him how I was supposed to help in this. He said by marrying him, I'm handing the business over to him without even me knowing. That sounded like he really needed my help, but why did he say we weren't going to get married legally when he needed this much help from me? I really didn't get an answer to my question. I told him we should get married legally then. Joe said there's no need for that. He also convinced me by reminding me that he hasn't gotten a proper divorce from his wife, so marrying another one seems nearly impossible. I told him to wait till he gets a proper divorce. Joe said he needed me now. I was confused. Did he only ask to see me because he needed me? That seemed to be the case. Joe said he knew he was giving me a hard task, but I should look at the bigger picture. He said I should know I would be getting something out of it. I would be living under his roof as a CEO's wife. I told him, hey, I'm a CEO too, so being his wife would not change anything. He said it was going to change a lot because I would enter high places. He sounded really manipulative. But I overlooked that part of him, and he told me living under his roof might just bring his wife out of her hiding place and then get a divorce from her. He told me I would have a lot to gain than lose. I told Joe I had 2 children. He said he was already ready to be their father. That statement was relieving to hear, I'll say that. I felt I was making a wrong decision, but I also felt it was so right. He told me we just need to convince his father. Get the business and live happily ever after. I've always been a risk taker, so why not? Let's do this. Update number 2. Alina, you're doing the right time. I would tell myself this. Joe and I started to see each other, and he made me travel interstate a lot of times. I travel back and forth almost every weekend. His father took interest in me the first time he saw me. He said he knew his son would get an amazing woman in his life. I was happy to gain acknowledgement from the elder. Knowing he was being lied to, though, I felt bad. Joe's father told me his son would own his business soon, and I should please give him the full support he needs. I told him he could count on me anytime. After I got that approval, Joe was almost licking and worshipping my feet. He said he knew I would be instrumental to his success, bragging about how his sense of judgment is always right. He couldn't stop grinning from ear to ear. I was moving into Joe's house with my children. That would mean I had to leave my business, the one I've invested so much effort, energy, and money into. I had to leave it behind. The house I got from my husband after our divorce, I had to leave it behind as well. Everything just didn't feel right, but I was doing it. The whole time I was seeing Joe, he introduced his daughter to me, his only daughter. Helen was cute, like her father. She was 19. The time I met her father and she was in college, Helen liked me too. She was really a cool baby girl. The entanglement I was about to get into with Joe made me sacrifice a whole lot of things. And I moved in with Joe together with my children. Joe got repaid by gaining ownership of the business. I was happy I helped. There was nothing binding us legally, but we were still a very close couple. I paid attention to the tiniest details about him because I wanted to be a good wife, while playing my role perfectly. Nobody knew our marriage wasn't real or sealed illegally, but we were the cutest couple you would ever see. Well, our marriage was beautiful, and yes, he took my children, like both of them. My children were instrumental to him too. My sons, they were high schoolers, but there were times that they skipped school because Joe needed them to do something. It did not sit well with me, but technically Joe was my husband and I couldn't say no. Joe would do some things I would never tolerate, and the money I realized I was cutting him some slack. I knew I was already in love with him. It's also been 1.5 years of us being together, and I'm basically crazily in love with him. He knew it too. He could tell I was definitely in love. But he was holding back. Times I tried to show him I loved him, he would get me a cold shoulder. I tried to carry his baby, and he would tell me not to try it. He would remind me I was getting old, and if I tried anything like carrying a baby, I might have regrets due to complications. It got to the point I started considering leaving him. I was a total stranger to him sometimes, but where would I go? Who would I tell my story to? I have a house, but I no longer have a job. This whole time, I was a housewife to Joe. I tried to start a business, and he told me I wasn't allowed. He said he was enough, and I always reminded him we were not married legally, and I should be allowed to do things my way. Joe would tell me I want to run away from him. He would tell me his daughter, Helen, took me as a mother. He would ask me if I want to run away from her the same her mother ran away. Well, I didn't know what to do or make sense of any of this. It wasn't even up to 2 years of us being together, and he's already being unfair. He won't marry me legally, and he won't allow me to move freely. Joe, at least he wasn't beating me. He isn't one to do that, but he was torturing me mentally. I concluded that there was more to the reason why his wife lived out of the house. I concluded he had something he was hiding. If I tried to run away, I would be hurting my children. Do I want to be taking them from one man's house to another? I'm really not that kind of woman to hop around. My children weren't aware of how I came into this man's life. They wouldn't understand why I wanted to move so suddenly. I don't want to look like a confused woman to my children. Joe was nice to my kids, but was cruel to me. After a while of staying together, I believed he should have developed a soft spot for me, but no. He developed a hard spot. He had only had a beautiful face, his heart was hard as a rock, and he was one of a kind. I kept everything I was passing through to myself. The mental abuse, the emotional abuse, they were much for me to handle, but I deceived everybody close. I don't have parents, so I couldn't run to anybody. I was an only child. Reason why I've always made such reckless decisions, I guess. Those decisions are costing me my sanity. To be honest, I never expected it to be this hard from the beginning. Joe presented this agreement to me in what way, and I wouldn't take offense to it. But look at me now. I've started showing emotions. I thought it was a small task and I could cope, but I'm a human being after all. I don't want to break. I'm holding everything in, and I'm holding everything together. I'm scared I might lose it. Hey guys, Mr. Reddito, so this story just took a big turn. Update 3 might shock you a little, because OP did not post an update for 3 entire years. Then OP came back to the thread and posted this. Hey guys, it's been 3 years since I last updated. I thought I should give an update about the situation of things in my life. I got a lot of requests to do it, so my children were done with high school, and Joe advised that they pin together to go to the higher institution, because now's the best time to learn the nitty-gritty of business. I'm not so educated, so I don't know much about schooling, but I was smart, with a little bit of dumbness to me. I know I didn't have much to say in this thing. Nothing was tying me to this man but my children. They know why I left their father, but they wouldn't know why I'm leaving this man. So, I chose to stay. But what about the future of my children? I convinced myself that my children knowing about business now doesn't sound like a bad idea. Helen came home on this particular day and we were having a family time when she spoke about how stressful it's been for her going home from school. Her apartment was far to school, and right there, Joe faced me and reminded me I have an apartment that's close to his daughter's school. After all, no one was even staying there. I was taken aback by this statement. This was my ex-husband's house in question, and my new husband wants his daughter to live there? This man has no shame. I told him it's fine, and she could live there since the house was truly closer to her school. Helen was so happy, and I was happy to see her happy. Later that night, Helen told me she would like to have a conversation with me, so I welcomed her. The first thing she did was to ask me how I'm doing. It was the first time someone asked me that in ages. I felt like pulling her into a hug. I thanked her and I told her I was very fine. She said she's never seen me complain, and she said her mother was always complaining before she finally moved out. Helen said her mother told her she never wanted the marriage with her father. That statement made me shiver. It sounded so cliche. She read my expression for a moment and continued, Helen's mother told her Joe convinced her into getting pregnant. She never wanted to have anything long-term with Joe. She further explained that her mouth said Joe was desperate and manipulative. She said her parents were always quarreling and her mother almost ran mad. That was the icing on the cake for me. I knew she didn't just move out. I knew there was more to it. When he told me his wife moved out without a reason, I believed him until I moved into his house and I realized how vile of a person he really is. I started suspecting his wife did not just move out. There was something insane backstory to it. Helen went on to tell me her mother asked for a divorce, but her father did not grant the divorce. She said she never blamed her mother for moving out because her mental health was at stake. She said her mother was always in pain and her father was never bothered. I started thinking of how crazy Joe is. I was scared because I don't know what he planned me to do. It's been 3 years and I've been seeing how psycho he truly is. Why does he treat women like that? Are we just toys to him? I knew I was on a long thing because I was not even married to him and I was living under his roof. I left the business I co-owned to live with him. Who do I tell my story to? Then they tell me I've gone insane. Helen said she wasn't trying to paint her father into a bad image, but she was only concerned about me. She said she doesn't want to see me leave too, like she likes me. Ever since her mother left them, she hasn't come back to them. She said she missed her mother, but there's been no way to reach her, and at this point, Helen was already crying. She wasn't aware I was fighting demons too, little Helen. She was not aware of the kind of agreement I made with her father. Joe asked me to be with him because he wanted to own his father's business. He's sneaky, and he comes off as someone that would do anything just to get what he wants. We lived in like total strangers, and hey, we were strangers. But did he find me unworthy? I know I sold myself short by agreeing to this to begin with, but he said it was much hope. Now, I can't do anything on my own. I'm practically useless. I wanted someone to be there for me and my children. I wanted someone I can call my own. Someone I can share my emotions with freely. I've been through so much in my previous marriage, I did not sign up for another mess like this one that I found myself in. I vowed to reset my life well, to rewrite my story about my previous message, but this was me going through heck. Helen said if I'm feeling some type of way, she told me to tell her. She said that she wasn't strong enough to be there for her mother, but she wanted to be there for me. She was so sweet with her words that I wanted to take her with me and just run away. People would say I'm selfish, and people would say I wanted money. Not that they were entirely wrong, but it was supposed to be a fair agreement. I believe Joe did not divorce his wife because he doesn't want to lose her. He knows what's at stake. If he should divorce her, he is so crazy. It was my fault for falling hard for someone like him. How does heart work? Does heart not think on its own? I told Helen everything will be fine. I told her father was not a bad person even when I knew he was a psychopath. She left for her room and I was left to reminisce. I knew Joel told me nothing between us going to be serious and I should have not expected anything more from him. But we got intimate often. How was it possible for me to get intimate with Joe and not have feelings for him? I've defaulted so much. I've tried to have conversations with Joe, and he's always invalidating my feelings. He always acts as if he didn't do anything wrong. Nothing I say to him's moved him. I've threatened to report to his father. I've even threatened to go tell him that we're not married. He would tell me to go ahead and see how much I would end up putting myself out. He said he really doesn't care, and he has the business now, and nothing I do will move up. And as far as he's concerned, he would not allow me to leave his surroundings. What was he gaining from torturing me like this? Agreeing to a contractual marriage was my fault. Cursed be the day I met him. Update number 4, final update. Hey guys, this might just be the longest update because a lot's happened in my life. I'm taking each as it comes, and life ain't always black and white, and karma doesn't work in our favorite times. Maybe I was just unlucky. Well, it's been 2 years since Helen started living in my house, which was closer to her school, meaning it's been 5 years since my marriage agreement to Joe. Helen was a sweet girl, after all, so I never had any problems with her living in my house. Well, my children weren't going to school still, and I didn't have money to send them to college, and the only man that I had has been using my children the way he wants. I know I would go down in history as one of the most irresponsible mothers ever. Not long ago, I started noticing some slimy movements and questionable characters in Joe. Well, he never hid it since he doesn't care about how I felt. He was seeing a lady, and I got to discover that they've been seeing each other for quite some time. I felt used, and I could not tell if this new lady is one of his play toys, like he's been using me. I couldn't tell if she was an attempt at him showing genuine love towards someone. Joe wasn't being fair. Why couldn't he try to love me? Why did he only allow it to stop at using me to acquire his father's business? I was determined to fight him, but on what basis? We never agreed to be husband and wife on paper. No one would take me serious. I confronted him and asked him if I can leave now since he has a new lady in his life. Joe told me I'll always think everything was about me alone. He said, do I even have any shame? Why do I always want to be at the center of everything? Joe opened my healing wound. He said he saw reasons why my ex-husband had me beaten. Joe said I was too stubborn and I needed to give it a rest. He said he'd only make the rules and I should never question him. Joe said, what if he decided to marry me the following day? He was saying all of this as if being with me was doing him a favor. He told me I should not think men would tolerate a woman like me, a divorced woman like me. Well, Joe hurt me. All the times he was saying that, I couldn't find the tears. I longed to cry it out, and nothing came forth. He said he was only helping his ex-wife by not giving her a divorce because who would want to be associated with a failure? I told him no. He did not give her a divorce because of his selfish gain. I told him I saw through him. He didn't want to have any reason to slash his wealth, did he? I told him that was the reason he was refusing to legally marry me too. He was scared of divorce because he knows he was a psychopath and no woman would deem it fit to be with him. We got into a heated argument this day, and he left the house for me and never came back until the following day. After he stumbled out of the house, I was in rage. I was in pain. I wanted to cry it out, but I don't know, I didn't. I wanted to scream, run away. My ex-husband did not even torture me this way. He would just beat me instead. I entered his room, and I didn't know what I was looking for. I just wanted to vent my anger. I started looking for what was not lost. I scattered everywhere as if it was looking for my birthright. Helen told me her mother almost ran mad, and I was suffering the same fate, it seemed. I was almost running mad too. I saw files upon files, and my attention was stolen when I saw one with a pretty cover. I thought it was a journal at first. The hardcover was beautiful, and I picked it open and I opened it. I really wasn't prepared for what I found. I discovered Joe had his will written already. How? Why? My feet became cold. I sat on the floor to read the content of the will, and Joe had a 99% wealth willed to his daughter. I'm not against him willing her his properties, but 99%? I was sure that wasn't all. He was still going to build businesses. He was still going to will everything to her. That was when I knew I meant absolutely nothing to this man. He only used me and my children, and he saw a broke in me, and he broke me even more. He approached me so he could acquire more wealth, and I was to get something from it too. But now I see what he planned. He left nothing to me. What about my sons? He had made my sons work for him. He stopped me from working too. Why does he want to hurt me so much, I still wonder. The tears, they didn't come out earlier, but they came down freely now. I've always been unlucky all my life, and Joe was a selfish, heartless man. He planned everything out so much that I couldn't fight back. I had no substantial evidence against him, and he was going to use me until I became useless. I even allowed his daughter to stay in the house I got from my ex-husband, and he still never thought that I've been useful to him, not even once. I couldn't tear those papers into pieces, but I knew I had to do something. I had to let out my anger somehow, and I knew I was going to hurt someone, but I didn't care. I've always been the one being hurt. I called Helen. I told her she might just need to start paying rent for the house she's staying in. She thought I was joking at first, but I made her realize that I was dead serious. She was one of her master's degree at the university then. I knew what I did was petty, but I told her to pay me for the month right away. Helen didn't argue with me, of course. She didn't know what was going on, but she sent me rent and the amount I told her to remit. Joe came back to me to confront me and asked me why I would ask his daughter to pay rent. He said if I was really desperate for money, I could have just asked him. He never ceased to use condescending words on me. He told me I was childish, and I told him I simply didn't care. I flung the papers in his face, and I told him karma would come for him since I can't do anything to him. I threatened to reveal what was between us to his father for the up-tenth time, and he didn't seem to care anymore at all. He told me to go ahead, and of course told me to go to heck. That was it for me. I prepared to go to Joe's father. I got to his big mansion, and I was told he was taking a nap. So I sat impatiently for hours waiting for him to awake. When he finally showed up, he greeted me well, in a way a father-in-law would greet his son's wife. He did notice distress in my face, and he asked me what was wrong. I apologized to him first, and I told him I've wronged him. I started with how myself and Joe met, how we agreed to be a couple without any strings attached. His face became expressionless. I even thought he didn't hear me at first, and he spoke and he said this: "How then do I think he can be of help?" I wasn't really prepared to hear that. He said, "I've lived a lie with his son for the past 5 years, and now I'm coming out to tell the truth because things didn't go my way, huh?" Joe's father said he would not support his son's actions, but there's nothing he could do about it. He said Joe has been running his business for the past years, and he has no regret. I should tell him why he needs to collect the business from him again. Tears streamed down my face. Joe's father said he turned his son into a kind person. He said he was always kin of him having a wife in his home, which has led into him being reckless. He said he was sorry for me, but my situation could not be helped. I felt like strangling the old man and also got home to strangle his son. I was absolutely filled with such rage. Out of annoyance, I told the old man he was an evil man and he raised a monster just like him. I told him people are okay things to bother father and son, and I can't wait for him to regret his actions. Joe's father told me to get out of his house. He said this exact words: "Get out, you filthy woman." Me, a filthy woman? Cursed be the day I entered their family. I was sent out like a thief in the night, and he said he'll tell his son to keep far away from himself and his daughter. Blood is indeed thicker than water, and I went back home with a heavy heart. I thought the old man was going to be reasonable, but rather he fed me with venomous words that I died and resurrected. I was just on my way home when Helen sent me a message. She wrote there that her father explained everything to her. She said, and as much as her father wronged me, she said I should not have done that to her. She says I wouldn't mind killing her if I had the power. Well, I read that message in her voice, and I could hear disappointment written all over the text message. I wasn't proud I took it on her. It was just the only way to get back to her. Helen wasn't my target. She was soft. She was a sweet girl. But I needed to let my pain out flowing somehow. She said she wishes me luck, but she would never act the same way towards me anymore. Helen said she doesn't mind paying rent. After all, she was almost done with her degree. She said, our relationship now is that of a house owner and a tenant. I thought I could take you as a mother, but you're reckless. I couldn't bring myself to reply to her message until today. I've lost a lot in my life, and I've lost her too. I wanted to go all out legally just to fight Joe, but who did I think I was, a legal wife? That was a joke of the century. Joe's had this coming. He's always been a gamer. He'd had everything mapped out such that he'd never lose. Thinking back to the moment I agreed to be in this contractual marriage, I should have requested from some sort of papers, serving as a witness with our signatures. I was too dumb to put everything on paper. I want to fight, but I have nothing to fight with. I would only be seen as a third wheel in a marriage, and I would be seen as a mistress, since he's never divorced his first wife. I called my sons, and I told them how everything began. They felt sorry for me, and they told me they'll always be there for me. I should have come clean to my children before now. Maybe they would have understood me, and I would have walked out of this facade since. I told my sons I was moving out of Joe's house. My sons said that they were leaving the house with me. I just hope my reckless life did not tamper with my son's mental health. I should have been a bit better of a mother to my amazing boys. I will sure have my life figured out shortly again, although I won't stop collecting rent from Helen. It won't solve anything, but I just want to be petty like her father. Alright guys, so this story didn't really have a good resolution in the end. I don't know, it just seemed like everybody was still mad. I mean, OP was still charging petty rent. The husband of this story, he didn't even seem to care about any of this. And the daughter, who didn't seem to even be a problem the whole story, was now caught in between this pettiness. I have one question for you guys about this story. If you were in this unique position we found OP in, what exactly would you do if you were in OP's shoes and you had to deal with the daughter, the husband, the two sons not being included in the will? Tell me everything you guys would do. Drop your comments in the comment section down below, guys. I have this high school bully. Her name's Jessica, and she's been making my life a living heck for so long. Well, I'm about to tell you guys the most ultimate betrayal story you've ever seen. And it leaves me wondering, how do I go about revenge? Because I'm not going to let her finally get away with it this time, because I'm coming for her. If there was one thing my mother, may she rest in peace, said that made me sick of hearing it, it was that good people don't always win, and that bad people rarely get what they deserve. Something a bit abrupt for a 10-year-old girl, I'd say. But today I have it closer than ever, because I feel my world falling because of the shamelessness of others, and the worst possible way. To understand all this, I'll give you two stories. The first I like to call the worst years of my life. That is, my high school days. In high school, young Amanda had to go through tough years due to the constant presence, well, of a mastodon that people called Jessica. You see, Jessica, a giant redhead, almost 6 feet tall, even was not the most popular, pretty, intelligent, or even charismatic in the room. She did not have any positive qualities. I know, it sounds cruel, but I'm going to come clean here in front of you because I'm tired of putting up with so much abuse. Something the Amanda of the time would not have the courage to do. If there was anything to highlight about her, it was her meanness. She was feared even by men and by those in superior years. I remember she once dragged a senior girl by the hair just because she dared to laugh at a picture of her in the school yearbook. After that, she earned a little bit of a reputation for the rest of her time at the high school as a girl to watch out for. And worst of all, I had to put up with it. I had my encounters with her too. Whether it was because we shared groups and subjects or because of one silly thing that led to another. To keep it in perspective, on one occasion, we were together in a group for an exhibition on geography. She was the only one who did not meet up with the practice, only to arrive a day before in front of us saying that she was going to be included in the project for having made the slides. Well, we all looked at her and refused. But because of the mounting pressure of what she might do to us, well, we took the deal. Unfortunately, she never passed her slides to us to rehearse with, so the next day we're just in limbo while we exhibited. Why? Because she only did her part of the exhibit, and she did it poorly, with spelling mistakes here and there, and lots of text that just weighed down the presentation. Several images in very low quality. She failed because she did not know how to say her point. And while the rest of us did pass, we did not get a great grade. In fact, we were one of the worst grades in the room. Then she got angry and looked at us and threatened us not to do that to her ever again when it was entirely her fault. On another occasion, and excuse me for going on too long, I have too many stale antidotes. In physical education, we both, starred in one of the most humiliating events of my entire life. Which I still say was a plot of fate or the planets to mix this up to make everything turn out the worst way possible. That day we went to PE. Uniforms as usual, one of the loosest shorts in the world, and we had marathon evaluation. Just before my shift started, Jessica came up with this brilliant idea, pulling down my pants, revealing, oh gosh, how embarrassing, my Hello Kitty underwear. Suddenly, that humiliation would have been enough, except that I was just coming off, my lady times. Yeah, that's right. The whole room could see Halloween Hello Kitty, and I felt humiliated and fell to the floor. The affair was so bad that Jessica was expelled for 3 days, having to offer me a formal apology. She never did, though. And the teachers just eventually let it go. I think they were scared. That event was so horrible and, loud that no one got a laugh out of it. I mean, you did that to a girl during her, cycle. Some jokes are clearly over the line, and when she noticed this, that no one seemed to applaud her for making a little short girl in the room cry, that's when she was the most outraged at me. I missed the next day out of embarrassment for what others would say. And while there were comments here and there, at least they did not transcend. But that was only externally because inside I was dying. I have so many stories to tell you about old Jessica. The time she, made me put a hand in a toilet. The time she put something in my soda to make me throw up. The time where she poured artificial gas down my pants, made me think she had, I don't know what happened. And all those times she would just throw those little chalk pieces that are in classrooms at the back of my head. I can't tell them all, and if you're wondering why I let myself or why I did not tell someone, the reasons are varied. What happened mostly is, like many cases of bullying, I told adults. But no one knew how to give me an answer or defend me. I tried to change schools, but we didn't have enough money to afford another place. In that sense, I was in a state of perdition. And so it went for several years, to the point of suffering a new humiliation every day. Somehow my studies were not so affected, and I was able to leave the place with one of the best averages, much to the anger of Jessica, who kept calling me names because of my, intelligence. A clear sign of envy. You don't know how happy I was when my college years finally arrived, and I told myself that I would never have to meet that horrendous creature again. However, the damage had already been done, as her humiliation and bullying, it penetrated deep inside of me, and the worst thing was that the boy she was dating went to my same university, so I saw her on many occasions. She was no longer a bump in my road, but her constant presence in my life still did not make me feel safe. She changed a lot during her transition to college, though, physically and mentally. While she was not the same intimidating, aggressive figure that she used to be, at least now her plans were more thought out, methodical, and passive. I remember the last encounter we had. It was over a rumor. I know she started about me and my boyfriend, and that escalated to the point where he broke up with me. But I didn't care much, as the guy ended up being a jerk. In which case, I might even thank Jessica. Still, One unfair aspect was her physical change. She managed to have this sculpted body after giving herself a growth spurt, and now a lot of men were after her. She would just end up taking advantage of them when she had the chance, and I like to believe that she redirected her bullying into a more lucrative field, squeezing money out of desperate lovers who would give anything for her. Well, and she didn't care for them at all. For her, the good life, and I guess that's fine. I mean, to each its own, right? But that's when my life enters this equation. Ready? Okay, so here it is. I met Tom in college. In my senior year, right after that relationship that I tell you Jessica helped destroy, he was my compensation for many things. Perhaps because he was too broken in several ways. He suffered from bullying at his school, and those were equally traumatic experiences for him. Well, leading to anxiety, self-esteem issues, you name it. I remember one of the things I liked about him was how shy he was about flirting with me. He would ask me if I was okay, and he wanted to know if it's okay if he flirts. And if he wasn't messing up anything. Anyone would have found that annoying, but for some reason, something about him made me find it cute. Because I knew where he was coming from, and that we did share that in common. I helped him a lot during all those times when he was feeling bad about himself, saying that no one would like him. I mostly told him that he did not have to be a Casanova heartbreaker to feel good, and that at least he had been able to win someone over just the way he was with me. I still remember part of the speech he gave me when he asked me to marry him. When I saw you, I saw myself, just reflected in another person. Insecurities, flaws, but always understanding that it can improve. I promise the same loyalty, baby, and trust that you have given me throughout the time that we've been together, and that I'll compensate you for every mistake I've ever made. I just hope I don't make too many. And, well, I don't know what you guys think, but guess what? I believe cheating on me with the bully of my entire life can be considered a damn mistake. That's right. He cheated on me with none other than Jessica. Of all the freaking people in the world, it had to be the one I literally disliked the worst. He could have slept with anyone else, and I still would have just frowned, but Jessica? I can't believe that fate, or life itself, would hate me so much as to make the most bitter coincidence of all main course in my reality. I dare say it's the worst thing that's ever happened to me, but if there's one thing I'm sure of, that's no matter how many bad things can happen to you, there will always be scenarios that make everything worse. I found out nothing more and nothing less than several comments on networks. Mostly by one of Jessica's friends. I don't have her added as a friend personally, and I would not dare to. I saw in her stories that she put several references to Jessica and another guy, and I quote you, "The one with thick glasses." And, well, as many women, my alerts were activated, even in a quite exaggerated sense. Don't get me wrong. I know there are thousands of people in the world with glasses like that, but the mind is a powerful thing, and sometimes it can see beyond what we think we understand. What happened to me, because as time went on, I started noticing more patterns in Jessica's post, where she was bragging about a relationship with a married guy and all. And when she posted a photo, I guess without Tom's consent, where in hand with a mole near the middle finger were clearly shown without showing the face. I lost my temper. The only redeeming part of all this is that Tom immediately broke down, admitting his guilt in the whole affair. She explained to me in detail how it all had been, and how weak she was for accepting the affair. They met at a meeting of mutual friends, where she became interested in him. I think that when she found out he was my husband, she became that much more morbid about doing it with him. Or at least that's what I'm guessing based on our history together. Anyways, she told him they might as well see each other in private, and I know this because I asked her how, and she showed me the conversation. Not an entirely good move on my part, but I was angry, and it was either that or committing recklessness. Well, I watched in horror as the man I loved the most for 5 beautiful years of our marriage now played games with the person I hated the most from almost my entire life. It was indignation at astronomical levels. Sure, reading the conversations, it's clear that Jessica is the one throwing herself at him, showing all the evil that woman hides in her irrational hatred for me. But Tom, he's no better. For although he sometimes plays hard to get, he can't help but bend like a little lamb. They would send each other very, very spicy pictures and text messages, and what disgusts me the most about it all is that he would not even delete the conversations, trusting that I would never see them. I don't want to say he wasn't smart enough, and I would applaud him if he had, but hey, it's cheating on me in my face. Gosh, just writing this makes my hackles rise. It's only been a few days since that revelation, and I did not know how to vent about everything I'm going through. After this situation, the trust that was in the house has been on the floor. And not for nothing. See, Tom cried too much. Maybe even more than I did. But I told him I'm not for that kind of thing. I came to my sister's house because I really cannot be around him. He's looked for 1,000 ways to be with me, or at least try to communicate, but I always say that all that will be in vain. It's terrible that the person you helped for so long betrays you in such a monumental way. My sister, far from helping, all she does is curse Tom, saying he's an unfaithful dog and deserves no forgiveness. I told her that's true and that he does not deserve my forgiveness, although there are still a few more things that need to be discussed, mostly because of the divorce issue, because I'm not willing to forgive this one. I feel I'm being very cold in this scenario, but I would rather get away from it all as soon as possible, and just when I thought Jessica's looming presence would never come near my life again, out comes this new low blow. I just hate everything right now, but it'll eventually get better, I'm sure it will, but not today. What's up, everybody? Mr. Reddito here. Man, today's story already took off on a wild ride. We're talking about OP having her husband cheat on her with not only some random person, but her high school bully. Well, if you think that was some turbulence, you haven't seen anything yet. Update number 1 takes place a couple weeks later. And if you guys are new to the channel, make sure you subscribe for daily videos, and let's jump into update number 1. Well, it's been a couple weeks, and I had the most bitter conversations of my life. It was talking to Tom about the divorce issue, something that did not sit well with him at all, to levels I did not think that I would ever know about him. On the advice of my sister and her friends, I was told that I should confront the man, to come to our old house and tell him my views. I was going in with the killing intentions, but when I arrived, the reality was different. I found a guy in his last room with a house turned into a pigsty, as if he'd never cleaned it in his life. Food everywhere, dirty walls, more dirty dishes piled up than I could count, garbage not taken up and stacked to the roof, and this rancid smell in some parts of the house. It gave me quite a pain to see our former love nest turned into a ode of filth. I was told that was Tom's way of expressing his soul, as a pile of garbage, as cruel as that sounds to say. This man gets down on his knees and tells me, don't abandon him, for so far all his days have turned gray without me. That he promised to get better, to be something different, that he'd stop seeing Jessica and would now just devote himself entirely to me. I brag about this because on networks I saw Jessica posting quite a few hints about how, and I quote, she came out winning once again. and stuff like that on social media, so I understand and believe that they're no longer seeing each other and that she did it just to ruin my life. Every time I think about forgiving him, I can't help but imagine him with her and her with him. Ugh. Sending our relationship to hell and reliving the hatred I had for that woman for so long. Still, I admit I felt too sorry to see him in that condition. For an instant, I did not see the man I married, but just another victim of bullying. Only this one had committed a very serious offense, and I was truly sorry. However, I must put my foot down and do what I consider right. It's my time to take revenge for all the bad things that have happened to me in life. So I'm already envisioning a plan that may work in the long run. In the meantime, I have to bite my tongue and just pretend that I will forgive Tom for everything. I know it sounds complicated, but believe me when I tell you that the best parties are the ones that take the longest to prepare for. Update number 2. It could be said that things have returned to normal, or at least that's what this, shown on the outside. The truth is that inside me there's been a hurricane of pent-up emotion. I found out about my husband Tom's cheating and told him about it, with him generating some sort of severe depression condition all of a sudden. So I decided that if I was going to separate from him, it would be in the most subtle way possible, without telling him. So, I feel that this may also benefit me, at least in a psychological sense, to be able to go through my grief with him so that at the time of disclosure it won't hurt as much. I consulted with a divorce lawyer, and he told me that this idea was more common than it seemed. I would be doing this corresponding act so that I could separate without the man knowing, and when I have to ask for his signature, that's when I'll finally reveal everything. If I tell him about the process, he's going to be pitying me all the time and begging me to not do it. I want to spare him of that. Not so much for him, but for me. It's been a few weeks and the dynamic has been loose. Mind you, with Tom being the most passive being I've ever met in my life, he's tried to cheer me up every day, professing all the love languages left and right. I don't know if you know about that. He's texted me poems, tried to spend quality time with me, done me favors, and gives me the occasional sweet. I know he doesn't want to overdo it to overwhelm me. The only thing that hasn't been done as such is touching me. I won't allow it. I feel that he's even too afraid of me to even try, and so our time goes by while some people keep commenting on what is wrong with us and why are we so distant. Things got a little tense. I almost ruined my plan because of something I saw on the interwebs. Jessica. She's pregnant. But far from thinking wrong, which I did right off the bat, I found out that her pregnancy just started recently, and that the last intimate relationship she had with Tom, I hate to even say it, was almost 2 months ago. So, the dates don't add up. But this only rekindled the hatred I had for the whole situation and made me stick to my plan. The papers are being dealt with, and it's often difficult to set up meetings with the lawyer without Tom knowing about it because, as I told you, he's always glued to me like a glue stick. I can't imagine how he'll be when he finally sees that we won't be together anymore. Well, about Jessica, what can I say? She got pregnant by one of the thousands of suitors that she has. That's all I know and all I need to know and all I care to know. I can't wish her ill because that would be something very, very bad to do. So I'm just going about my business and project in peace without any distractions. When everything is ready, I'll tell you guys what happened, because a story like this could even be adapted into a novel or Hollywood movie. At least my sister sees it that way. Update number 3. The anxiety and depression can get pretty bad, and as much as I hate being a part of it, I know I should not let anybody bend me over. A week ago, I showed Tom the divorce papers, passing them off as some just random document he had to sign. Wow, the house ownership stuff, and since he did everything I asked without complaint, he had no problem signing, not realizing that he was sealing our separation fate. A few days later, the document became effective, with me throwing the signs of infidelity which they declared sufficient justification to be able to incur the formal divorce. Little by little, and without Tom noticing, I moved things out of the house. We'd been sleeping in separate rooms all this time, and I told him that at some point we could get back together. Yeah, that's a bit cruel, right? And I ended up staying with my sister. When he called me one day, noticing I wasn't there the day before without leaving a note, well, I just left him a message. I'm sorry for everything, Tom, but I won't be able to continue. We are divorced. Amanda. That's all it took for chaos to reign, and, well, Tom changed 180 degrees after that divorce message was sent, and I knew it affected him because he could not even bring himself to write a message to reply. 3 days later, I started asking about him, but hardly anybody would tell me anything about it. On recommendations from several parties, I did the best I could, staying out of any kind of interaction and always being alert that something unforeseen could happen out the blue. But nothing of the sort transpired. Yesterday, my sister told me she ran into Tom near the grocery store, and what she saw, it was not pretty. Amanda, you won't believe this, but I saw Tom in the supermarket, and he was, almost unrecognizable. His beard, it was surprisingly very long for having only been there a week. He showed up with this greasy hair and wrinkled, tattered, dirty, stain-ridden clothing, as if he was living under a bridge. He was indeed deplorable, to the point where I tried to talk to him. I asked him as if I didn't know anything about what happened, but he was not one to mince words. I'm telling you, Amanda. He told me that his reasons for existing were over, through his fault and his fault only, and went on his way. I guess he would have known that you were with me, and that I would be aware of everything, so he did not want to relive this discomfort again, Amanda. Wow. Well, I'd be lying if I said I did not feel sorry for him, but I have to stay true to my principles and all the implies. That is, knowing that the other person will have their life, right or wrong, and that I have to move it. I know from Facebook that Jessica is too excited about her baby. As if I care. And that she's already bragging about buying cute little clothing on social media without even knowing the gender. Tom and I never really considered having a baby, and I feel it was for the best because this situation would have been way more awkward. He told me a couple years ago that he saw children in our future, but he should have held on to this idea before throwing himself into someone else's arms. Update number 4. The lawyers. Hey guys, another update. I just got back from a meeting with the lawyers and Tom. And let me tell you, it was not pretty. I did not see the same person I married. I saw a human being that was considered a shipwreck, who could barely put one foot in front of the other. Guys, it sounds exaggerated, but I swear, Tom is messed up. Physically, mentally, whatever else. The meeting was because he wanted to appeal that divorce, saying it's invalid and he was unaware of the affair, claiming he was the one cheated on. I laid out, once again, and with all the embarrassment in the world, the evidence of infidelity he had with Jessica. And it was not 2 hours before a verdict was given. It was said to have been one of the least fruitful meetings there had ever been, and Tom could tell by sight that it had been a desperate attempt at it. It was then that he came up to me and said a few things, and though I ignored him, I could even sense a certain whiff coming from him that I found nothing but hurt. He told me that he still loved me, and that he would do everything he could to have me again. He would almost get down on his knees again in the street just to yell to the world that he wants to remarry me, that I should give him another chance, and that, yes, if I accepted, there might be even the slightest bit of deal and condition for the relationship. Well, I didn't quite understand what he was referring to, but I didn't want to find out. However, I can't help but feel very bad about it. The guy goes out of his way to show how sorry he is, to the point of being a beggar in front of me, in front of everyone. It arouses a bit of sympathy in me, but I don't feel like I can live the rest of my life with that kind of betrayal. Why can't Tom just move on? The one moment where he didn't seem like he was about to die was when he said to me, and I quote, "And you just pretended all this time, Amanda, that I could have another chance. In reality, you cheated on me too. I may be a bad person, yes, but I know you're not exempt from anything." Well, that hurt a bit. Update number 5. This is the final update by OP. There are moments when one thinks about whether the actions one does are or were worthwhile. In my case, it's difficult to say, as I have to admit that they contributed to bitter events such as the death of a loved one. I arrived home a few days ago only to receive a call from a friend, saying something dreadful. Tom passed away. He took his own. It was a cloudy Wednesday in the middle of once a dirty, messy, unloving home. I can't help but cry over what happened, and I do feel bad for him. After our divorce, I learned that he went into severe depression, which was on the lips of many of our acquaintances. Almost everybody was willing to help him, but he would just lock himself in the house and wait for life to go on. He used to say that he had lost everything, and that he had become his own greatest enemy for having betrayed the one love that he ever had. The one love that made sense, and he deserved that. Of course, there were other things like the self-esteem issues and the bullying he received as a young man, saying that sometimes good people make mistakes too, and just automatically going to dark sides, just like those who aggravated them originally. Tom left a letter, but only his brother has it, and I don't think he'll let us read it. I don't think I'd be interested anyways. It would just be too heartbreaking to face it. That's when I wonder if it was all worth it. Keeping the divorce from him might have been a bit low, and it makes me question too many things in my life, and I don't think I'm ready for another relationship. At least, not now. Since Tom wasn't the only one who started building a trust issue, I've been feeling a bit sick for a while now, like my heart's just spinning and it won't stop. And I feel like a real culprit is just unpunished. In a perfect world, and excuse me for writing like this, Jessica would not even be able to have her baby. Yeah, I don't know how she's doing with that, as I've stayed far away from social media completely. But only time will tell what kind of mother she'll be. If it's compared to the kind of woman she's been all her life, I wish that baby the best of luck. The last I heard, and it was because I overheard it from a friend's conversation, was that the baby's father left, abandoned her, as he was a married man, and said he didn't want to take responsibility for the mistake he's made. Well, what do you call that? I guess it's kind of like a divine intervention, divine justice. As my mother used to say, sometimes good people end up losing, and bad people don't get what they deserve. I think there's a lot of grayscales in my story, and you know what? I'm just too tired to analyze it. No more updates. Alright guys, so the comment section of this one, it was all over the place. A lot of people were standing up for OP, saying, hey, this is a sad story, and yes, what Tom did is very distressful and sad, but you have nothing to do with this. You were not the one who cheated, and you were bullied by her your entire life. You did nothing wrong. But on the other side of the coin, there were a bunch of comments saying how she went too far, OP was being petty at this point, and she ultimately caused Tom to go into a deep depressive state. So I want to ask you guys one question. Where do you lie on this story? Put it in the comment section down below. Let's discuss it down there. My entitled husband, he tried to kick me out of my house. But little does he know, the deed is in my name, and I've got a little trick up my sleeve that he didn't see coming. Hey guys, I don't really know what to say. I'm not really sure exactly how I got here, but here I am. These days my life have not really been the best, and I guess I need to place just a vent and talk to somebody. Since I ain't got no family or friends, well, here I am. Where do I even start? Let's see. I guess we can start with my husband of 5 years. Served me with divorce papers tonight during our anniversary dinner. I can't say I wasn't expecting it, but I guess I didn't think that he'd do it on such a day or even this soon. I knew that the spark in our marriage was dying long before today, and I thought I had long come to terms that it would end soon, but it still hurts, you know. This was a man I once thought I'd be spending the rest of my days with. Never would I think this day would ever come, because our romance came so easily. It was everything I've ever wanted. Pure, passionate, perfect. It felt as if he was the final piece of my puzzle, top left corner. As cheesy as that may sound, still, now it's over. It's been over for a while, and I guess I was still in denial. I noticed it, the slow, silent resentment that was building up behind his gaze every time he looked at me. The nights where no matter how much I dressed or how I acted, he would just turn over and go to sleep with his back towards me, facing the wall. Not the least bit interested in communicating or even touching me. Wow. The countless times I'd have to call him for him to even pick up and speak to me just for a moment. The way I have to beg, and I mean beg, to attend functions with him, and to know where he'd be going and for how long he'd actually be away. Well, all that. I admit I slowly grew my own level of resentment, but even then I still tried to make it work. Thinking that as long as he saw I was trying, he'd try to be, but, wow, boy, I was wrong. These last few months were when I slowly gave up as there was a change in him, and growing up with a similar family dynamic, I understood the signs very well. They were the signs of a man when he was seeing another, and likely not just a random nightstand as he usually did, but an actual mistress, somebody that he's been cherishing and valuing the way he should me. The late nights out, the secretive handling of his phone, the quiet smiles, and the calls that he'd be always just stepping out of the room for. Well, everything hurts. It really hurts. Worst was when the insults started coming. I would just nag him, because after years of trying, there's only so much one could take. I purposely began picking arguments, because it seemed like that was the only time he had any emotional reaction to me. They were arguments I never won, as I was never good with words and tit for tat, which meant often he'd be harsh and sharp-tongued, and I'd often just end up weeping by myself in the corner as he left. Where was he going? Obviously his mistress's house. Still, that didn't last for long, and once I overheard him talking about divorce on his phone with who I guessed to be his mistress, I knew I had to move on, and I had to do it fast. So, I started creating my way out, my little escape tunnel. The first thing I knew I had to secure was a place of residency, and I'd grown attached to my current home, so I checked out the deed. Maybe I was a bit vindictive, because I heard him mention to someone about living with them, and it seemed it was referring to our marital home. So, I knew I had to make sure that didn't happen. Once I checked the deed, I also consulted a lawyer, and through him, I learned of the process to change ownership of the deed. It took a nice little sum of money just to get it done, but I did, and well, luckily it came through just in time. Only a week ago, and tonight it came in handy, because while I spent precious time planning our anniversary dinner, where I wanted to have a genuine conversation as a last-ditch attempt to even see where we went wrong so that I won't repeat it again in any future relationships. My dearest husband had shown up almost 1 hour late, and he did not even sit down. Instead, he dropped a fat old envelope right there on the table in front of me and coldly said, in bold words, "I want a divorce." I wasn't too shocked. as I kind of expected it, just maybe not as it came so soon. Still, I tried to reason with him to ask him why, as I took the envelope and the words that came from his mouth were the ones that really hurt me the most. I'm talking about crushing me. He told me that I was fat, boring, unattractive. How after I lost my mid-20s innocence and attraction, I was just never the same. Saying how he could not even stand to look at me. There were other foul things that dripped out of his mouth, but I would rather not say it just to save the pain. Anyways, after he went through his entire rant, I responded the best that I could, which only seemed to aggravate him a bit until he was full-blown screaming for me to just sign the damn papers and get the heck out of his house. Along with how I was unsightly to look at. Now that made me angry, that last little remark, to know that his plan was to not only divorce me after 5 years of marriage, but to also kick me out of the house that we had so many memories in just to start fresh. Still, I wanted to know one thing before I made my final decision, and that's why I had asked him about the assets and the alimony. He even straight up laughed in my face like I was some sort of stupid person. Then he asked me if I was crazy, ranting on how I was a worthless pig that literally sat at home all day doing nothing while he went and busted his behind every day at work. He told me that I'd be the last person to see a penny of all that he worked for, along with other things, before he once again demanded that I sign those papers. I didn't fight him. I read the papers and saw he really intended to leave me absolutely penniless, but I signed. The reason is that the house was worth more than, well, all he had worked in the last 5 years, and it was mine. Once I signed those papers, he ripped them out of my hands, as if they were some rare treasure map, which, well, it hurt. But it also gave me the fuel that ignited what I needed. He'd asked me what my reason was to keep standing there instead of going to pack my stuff, and I just smirked. As I went upstairs, but not for my bag, but instead for his. I packed a single suitcase of his and grabbed a copy of the deed, then went down to him. The look of his face when he saw that the little luggage I had was his. It was funny, yet it was sad, as it showed just how happy he was to get rid of me, and also how eager he was to have everything of mine gone from his place, so I could be replaced, but it wasn't happening. I admit, it gave me some level of pleasure and soothing to my anger and hurt at his betrayal when I threw the suitcase at his feet and the deed on the table, smacked it right there in front of him. He was confused at first when he saw how collected I was, but once he read the deed, his face morphed into all different colors. And I was called a range of slurs, along with accusations and just almost everything an enraged man could do. Learning that his wife had meticulously planned to leave penniless was anything but that, and learning that he had basically been robbed of his life savings, which is our house, because he had paid completely for it. And guys, at this time in the market, it's worth $500,000. I felt so smudged when I reversed his words on him like Uno and told him to get out, threatening to have cops get him out for me if it was refused, and he tried to argue with me, but when I began dialing, he realized I was not playing any games, and he stormed out with the suitcase I prepared. I admit, I smiled for a bit when he left, but afterwards I cried like a little baby, because even though I felt good having that small little victory, it was still so little, compared to the sadness, rage, and betrayal of the 5 years I lost. It was only after that crying and a warm bath that I was able to come here and vent. But hey, this is my story. I'll keep you updated if anything goes down. What's up, everybody? Mr. Reddito here. Today's story is a wild ride. Alright, well, I'm just going to tell you right now, there's 6 updates. And update number 1 is something you're probably not ready for. Guys, if you're not subscribed to the channel, it helps out me immensely if you do that, and you never miss an update if you're subscribed, so go ahead, click that button, and let's jump into the update. Hey, once again, guys, guess I'm back to vent to the internet since, I have nobody else to vent to. I saw your feedback and I'm grateful for the support. It pains me to know that there's so many women like myself who experienced what I did. As now, when days have passed and it was, truly set in, my feelings are definitely not the same as before. I had time to think of what would happen and the unfairness, unjustfulness. I can feel it. I realized just how badly I was treated in the last few years, and I don't only feel sadness anymore. Instead, I feel myself wanting to fulfill some type of revenge. I want him to feel at least an ounce of the pain I felt these years. From his mistreatment, manipulation, abuse, infidelity, you name it. I want him to regret doing what he's done to me, as I've been nothing but a good wife to him, and this is how he chose to repay me, huh? By looking down on me, humiliating my name, degrading me, making me feel less than a woman, making me feel as if I am not enough, and walking out on me to be with another woman. I never saw it before, but now when I'm not blinded by my need to fix us and make us work, I realize that all along I was the one putting in the work and putting in the effort. I was the one that always was there, and I just never really got anything. In fact, my husband, looking back at the last few years, has been verbally, emotionally, and financially abusive to me. What I meant is he would call me names, gaslight me, or use a weaponized incompetence when I try to communicate my feelings to him about some of the things he did. He would also limit when and what I spent, which at first wasn't a lot, but as the years went by, he made sure every penny that his financial advisors and other people he hired looked at, brought everything for the house. Well, he had no reason to give me any money of my own. This had caused me to start doing odd jobs. Online was the best, and only now did I realize how messed up that was. As before, I just bought that. It was his money, and he had the right to spend it however he felt or pleased. How stupid was I? Still now, for all that, and the worst of it is, he would be his constant infidelity that I had to turn my blind eye to, thinking that it's okay as long as it's just a random hookup, not a full-blown relationship. He would pay. As just looking how this would blow up in my face. It's just so funny still, but what's funnier is what I plan to do. I'm gonna have my revenge I'm speaking of, but as for now, I did a little research through the things that were left here since he is yet to return for them, and I managed to find a few receipts, along with a laptop I've never even seen him use, and a secondary phone too. I guess that's what he used for his affair. So, what do? I bring it to a specialist, and he plans to break through the coding so that I can get access to whatever has to be inside. Something tells me it's going to be useful in this upcoming revenge. Well, I also rented a car using my savings, which was enough to keep me stable just for a few months. And I used that car to drive to his place. I know, stalking is illegal, but I did what I needed to do. I did what needed to be done, and in doing so, I found out where he was staying. I mean, I didn't find much, say, incriminating or damnable information on him, but I'm working hard, and once I find that little strand of what I'm looking for, I'll make him regret ever crossing me. Update number 2. Hey guys, you probably thought I wasn't coming back. I know it's been a while since I've been here, but I've got good news. Quite a few things have transpired. For one, I found a great amount of very useful information on my dear ex-husband. See, my ex, he worked at a big company, and over the last decade, he's been steadily rising up the ladder just to earn top of his company. In fact, he was dubbed as one of the fastest growing employers there. I was honestly shocked just to know this when I first found out, but I just attributed to his late evenings at the office, and this is why. Now I knew those late evenings weren't actually at the office. He was actually cheating all those times with any random girl that caught his attention. Still, That leaves the question of how is he growing so fast if he isn't that exceptional of a worker that I thought he was? Turns out, he had been maliciously sabotaging his competitors at the company. Literally, whether it's stealing a project idea or using his contacts to swoop in like a hawk. And just when the employee was about to be noticed and take over, effectively earning him credit for work he never did. Or just to straight up take projects and having those under him do all the work. Then he'll come through and do these little edits on top of it and claim that he did everything himself. This tactic, yeah, it's cunning, and quite deceitful as it's the only reason he was able to climb to the top so fast. Yet, in doing so, he stepped on a lot of toes. I had a lot of proof from files that I found on his laptop while sneaking around at his office at home. They were pretty well hidden, and if I hadn't been looking hard, I would not find them, so I guess that's why he wasn't that worried that they're still here. Plus, he probably thought that even if I did find them, I'd be so much of a coward to do anything. Anyways, after I compiled all this information, I contacted a few of the people involved who I knew were fired from the company, enabling my ex to steal their work. It was a hassle, but hey, I got them to all attend lunch with me at a diner. Starting the conversation and getting them interested wasn't very hard, because once they learned that I was Jake's ex-wife, and that I was investigating what he had done to them at the company just to get a bit of revenge, they were more than happy to provide me with everything. All of which I recorded in different ways to bring home after lunch. I didn't know just how I was gonna expose him as the cunning, deceitful jerk he was just yet, but I was still preparing. I knew the company would be having this really big event in a few weeks though, so I hoped to figure something out by then, as what better way to expose that little weasel than before the people he's been deceiving. Also, another little bit of good news. The specialist contacted me this morning and he said the phone and laptop could be picked up early tomorrow, so guess what? I'm really looking forward to what I find. I'm going to update you all, and I'm grateful for your following support. It's really helped me cope with all this. Update number 3. Hi. So, where do I begin? I honestly want to cry so bad while I write this, but I'll try to hold it together. So I received the phone and the laptop a few hours ago, and while I did open them up and find some gritty information, I also found something that completely broke me. I found out. My best friend of 7 years, Lily, well, she's very deeply involved in ruining my marriage. On the laptop, I found bank transactions to her, and on the phone, I found text messages. Videos, voice notes, whatever else could be sent through a phone, where my ex-husband and Lily have been in constant contact for 4 years. Now, for the first 2 years, they seemed a bit innocent. She was almost like any normal friend checking in or looking for me through him. But after that, things seemed to change. It seemed that the first time was when I had my first all-out argument with my ex, and I also ended up blowing up on Lily. At the time, I just lost my father a few months back, and I just really wasn't coping well. I'd gained a little weight, and I just wasn't able to do what I needed as a wife. And well before you knew it, argument started, and I was hurting and just not in the right headspace. And instead of being an understanding and compassionate husband, Jake had been very cold and callous towards me, insisting that I just get over it, and saying how I was wasting my life away. At the time, I was hurt, and I thought he was right, but I didn't react the way he wanted me to, and we argued. Looking back, I knew that my reaction was normal, and he was just an a-hole jerk. I also realized that was the first sign of his true colors. Anyways, we argued, and when I went to Lily for comfort, her reaction was similar to his, and so I had an argument with her too. I ended up spending the night at a hotel, and that's the first time they had an independent conversation. From there, the friendship between them clearly grew, and I realized it was also from that point on that my marriage got worse. Still, it wasn't the affair that hurt, it was the fact that Lily began to tell him lies and paint seeds of doubt within him. I realized that whenever she did that, it was around the same time we would argue, we would fight, and I realized through their messages that she basically sabotaged my marriage, until they eventually began having a full-blown affair in the past year. Funnily, it was around that time she starts dating Simon, who was Jake's best friend. From the messages, it was all a cover-up for their own activities, as it would make it easier to explain why they were together often, especially at all functions. All those double dates were never meant for bonding. It was all meant for them to spend more time together. Still, I hurt a lot just reading those messages because I saw the journey that my ex-husband took that was falling out of love with me and falling in love with another woman who deceived him and me. Since my divorce from Jake, I'd yet to tell Lily because I was worried about the effect it would have on our relationship with Simon. Well, I was worried about the wrong thing, and not telling her was a good thing. As I'm sure if I had informed her, I would not have learned all that I did and to have revenge. In fact, she probably would have talked me out of my anger that I had towards Jake. It's really funny, and it's sad in a way, and messed up in a way, as I really had no one but myself to trust. Still, after learning all that, I decided that I would let Simon in on my plans, as he would be really useful. Since I knew he had a genuine feelings for Lily, and I knew he would be just as hurt as I was by Jake's and her betrayal, meaning we have a common goal of an enemy. Still, that's for later on, but the only saving grace in all this that makes it a bit easier to continue towards my goal of revenge is that on the laptop I found a little secret of my dear ex-husband. Guess what it is? Turns out, while he had been plotting to leave me penniless, he had created a bank account under a fake name and began stashing away most of his paychecks on it, his plan being if I tried to fight him in court for half of his assets during the divorce, then if the judge ruled in my favor, he would just plead bankruptcy, which meant I'd have nothing, and to get half of zero is still zero. Then once it blew over, he would just have the cash in storage to set himself up nice with his new little pretty mistress while leaving me to suffer. Sadly for him, that wasn't going to happen because once I found it today, I immediately went to work draining it. I took every single penny, nickel, dime, quarter, half quarter, you name it, I took it. I showed him that the true regret feels like this for what he did to me, and I can just imagine how he'll react when he learns that the one who'd been left penniless was in fact him. As a protective measure to make sure it could not be traced back to me, or at least make it hard to trace, I changed the details in the account and screwed it up so badly that even if he went directly to the bank, they'd simply be unable to help him for a few months. Plus, even if they did, they'd likely discover he was avoiding taxes with a fake name. So, I doubt he would want to tie himself up, huh? I'll be having the meetup with Simon tomorrow, so once that happens, I'll update you guys further, as I honestly can already smell victory in the air. Jake was gonna wish that he never, ever met me. And Lily, well, she's gonna wish she had been a good friend. Update number 4. So, I met with Simon. As always, he was a sweetheart. We talked normally for a while before I informed him of the divorce. He was shocked, which showed me that he was just as clueless as I was. I'd informed him about what I learned over the last few weeks, and to say he was shocked would be an understatement. The hardest thing of everything to tell him, though, was about Lily and Jake's affair. He didn't believe me at first, but once I got down to the nitty-gritty, it was the proof I gave him. I had to comfort him, as it turned out. He was planning to propose to Lily at the big party Jake's company was hosting, as he always worked for the same company. Hearing that made me sad, but also happy, as it meant I had not only saved Simon from maybe the worst decision of his life, but I also had a way to expose Jake's deceit before every one of his victims. I told Simon about what Jake was doing at the company, and he was shocked, as he hadn't noticed, but once I started listing off incident after incident the former employees had mentioned, recognition immediately came to him. He agreed to help expose Jake at the party. Luckily, he was in charge of the team that would do the visual shows, and so we planned to make a slideshow. We also did some more stalking. We managed to follow the two little lovebirds to a hotel and caught them in the act. We didn't even make it known, but once we had a few pictures, it was easy peasy lemon squeezy. So, wish me luck for the party, as now I'm really high-strung on excitement towards the downfall of my ex-husband. Update number 5. Hey guys, so the party was spectacular. Oh lord, I'm buzzing with excitement right now. You should have seen his face when I exposed him. So, me and Simon had shown up at the party as a couple. Now, no, we aren't dating, but he had me attend as his +1. The curiosity on everybody's face when they saw us together was clear, as I knew they were expecting me to come with my husband, not his best friend. Anyways, I'd noticed Jake and Lily glaring at us from across the room, but we ignored them. I didn't try to talk with Lily, as I knew I may have slapped the life out of her for what she did to me, so I avoided her. Once the party got going and everything went on, it was soon time for the slideshow, and I was in the front row. The most amusing part was, Jake was the one responsible for the first opening visual. But what they all expected to appear wasn't what happened. Instead, it was all the files and pictures and proof on top of, proof of him stealing others' work. The room was filled with many reactions, shock being the strongest, and the way his face paled when recordings of his voice came from the speakers of him saying less than pleasant things to employees who worked underneath him was so satisfying. The chaos that ensued when the images of him and Lily in very compromising positions created a domino effect. By the time the night was complete, Jake had been arrested and taken to jail, while Lily was in the hospital because of how many times she fainted. It was so satisfying watching their lives just fall apart. Simon also shared that joy with me, which made me happy, as I thought that he wholeheartedly deserved better. Well, let's see how things progress from here. I think whatever happened from there on out, I would be happy. Final update, posted by OP. Hey guys, I know it's been a few months since my last update, so this is the final. But first, thank you for the support and love. You don't know just how much it helped me in this whole thing. There were too many times when all I wanted to do was give up and lay in bed and just weep, but I didn't. It's been a few months since the party, and Jake got sued. He was mercilessly attacked from all ends, from his employers to his employees, and the people who he gotten fired for stealing their work. It was watching a piranha feeding frenzy, and he was the fresh meat. Within the first month, he had run bankrupt from legal fees and other things. That was the moment he had turned to his stash, only to find it gone, and to make it even more fun, I chose the exact time to finalize our divorce in court. I got nothing but the house, and I was happy. It took a few months to get into his bank account and found out that I drained it, so he contacted me about it, cursing me up a storm, and a bunch of other things, which was highly amusing to me and Simon. I only mocked him because he had no way of proving I was in fact the one gone with his stash. While the case got settled, eventually he still ended up out of a job and a ruined reputation. I also learned that his parents had disowned him and that the same happened to Lily. They'd left the city a while after everything was sorted, and I kinda hoped they'd fall apart after all that as a final piece to satisfy my revenge, but I saw on Lily's social media they got married. It stung as the betrayal was still fresh, but I'm learning to cope. I'm recovering, and I'm taking myself towards my own little journey of self-healing. I deserve it. Most of all, I'm learning to find peace in being alone. Man, I felt bad for Simon in this story. I mean, wow. What a lot to take in, finding out what was happening with your girlfriend Lily, and then all the stuff OP went through. I'm just glad. At the end of the story, they were able to get a bit of revenge. So guys, let me know your thoughts on this. Drop your comments down below. Maybe you've been in a position like Simon or somebody and you just have something you want to share. Drop it in the comment section down below. My name's Mr. Reddito. I animate stories every single day. So stop on by, see what story we're doing for the day. Make sure you subscribe so you never miss an update. And I'll see you guys tomorrow.